Hello there, one and all, and welcome to this week's edition of our chat. As always, I'm joined by my mate and ex-colleague Ralph Hebgen, who is the resident genius and former equity research guru. This week, we're going to be talking about three things. Firstly, the Bank of England's decision to leave interest rates unchanged. Secondly, the major takeaways of this week's inaugural AI summit, and I don't mean the food. And thirdly, the potential end of the luxury boom. So let's start off with what is probably our favourite subject, and that is inflation / interest rates. So, of course, this week, the week just gone, we saw that the Bank of England decided to leave interest rates unchanged. Actually, lots of people have been asking me, in the gym and other places, what do I think is going to happen? So everyone's going to be interested in this. So, Ralph, what do you have to say?
I have to say that you go to a really strange gym if people drift up to you when you're doing the press ups or whatever you do. 500 kilograms and ask you, oh, before you go, mate, can you just give me?
What do you think? By the way, they know me, just in case you were just wondering, like, I go to the gym and some random people just think, oh, he looks like someone that might know what's going with the interest rate.
Yeah, exactly.
These people know me. They
bit
do
of a
know
heads
me.
up of where interest rates are going to go.
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Right, anyway, I mean, I do think about interest rates a lot. So when I'm at the gym, that's genuinely all which crosses my mind.
Of course.
Well, I mean, there is it's an ongoing story. We comment on it recurrently. There is not that much to report on it, but I just wanted to mention or acknowledge, first of all, that the Bank of England has kept interest rates unchanged at the previous level of 5.25%, and that is the level we got to at the last meeting. And at the last meeting, they already said, well, we are probably going to go into a period where we are not going to need to increase rates anymore, but also it is unlikely that they're going to come down anytime soon. And I don't know who it was, but some person used mountain ranges to illustrate the dynamics here, and he basically said, well, it's not going to be the Matterhorn, it's going to be Table Mount. So the Matterhorn goes up and down, and Table Mount is in South Africa, I believe, and it sort of goes up, and there's a plateau on which we're going to be for a long time.
By the way, for those of you who are listening to this, you are missing the whole kind of the visual aids that we're doing here. We are using our fingers to draw the mountains. So, if you've ever thought, oh, what do they look like on video? This would be a great, this is fate telling you to watch us on video. I don't know.
Absolutely, you should really catch this on video, because you can see Peter in his office and me in mine, and you can we spare no expense in bringing you 3D immersive slides with fingers drawing weird sort of shapes into the air. It is absolutely brilliant. Nobody knows what we're doing.
No, indeed. And in fact, actually, let's just quickly say that obviously you might have noticed that there are some books behind Ralph at the moment. That's his book, Happiness Rules, which we are talking about actually in another podcast that will be coming to you very soon. And actually, that is going to be something I think that will be very useful to you all. So again, just watch out for that. I haven't published it yet. And I think there will be at least 2 in the series of these special podcasts. But anyway,
it's not going to be about the book, of course. It's going to be how to find the right career, but this is what I've been writing about as well in the book. What we're talking about now, of course, is back to the mountain ranges of Switzerland and South Africa as metaphors for interest rates, as you do. So basically, acknowledging again, Bank of England kept interest rates stable. And that's in the context of their statement last time they did just that, that interest rates are going to be at this level for a long time. This time, the Bank of England has also added that it is concerned about a period of stagnation that the
Mhm.
UK economy is going to move into. And I just wanted to make a quick comment on the, let's say, fragile uh, condition or fragile fabric of the economy in which we are currently um, in which we find ourselves, because inflation is coming down, not materially but visibly. Inflation is also the same in the year to September as it was in the year to August, and that's 6.3% headline inflation, and yet it is coming down. So as inflation is coming down,
Mm.
but interest rates are staying the same, that puts a little bit more money into people's pockets.
Mm.
Not a lot more money, but it is sort of, you know, visible. If you are in a situation where the cost of living is such that you do have to wonder whether you can pay the grocery bill and your electricity cost. And you are
Mm.
going to wonder about this again, because I, for one, can say that I'm wearing a little bit more layers here
Mm.
because it's turning cold now in London
Mm.
and everywhere. So if you are in that position, and most people are, then it is a good thing if inflation is coming down and interest rates are not going to go up further, because clearly that means that your expenses are coming down while your mortgage expense, as the key item in your household budget, is not increasing
Mm.
anymore. This is only true for those who are at the end of their fixed rate term.
Mm.
I understand this. Let's not be too detailed here, but that is the situation. So the problem here is, for the Bank of England, they will of course observe this. As it puts a little bit more money into people's pockets, it means that people might actually spend a little bit more in the economy. And as they do this, that unfortunately will support inflation. So in your attempt to make sure that inflation is indeed being fought by the interest rate decisions of the Bank of England, the bank has to now be careful not to give in to calls which are already arising now
Mm.
to lower interest rates. Because if you lower interest rates too early, then you will have a situation where you support inflation that's unfortunately then going to be counterproductive, leading to the necessity to raise interest rates again. And that's not going to look very good if the
Mm.
Bank of England is going to sort of, another 3D slide coming up for you guys who are just listening, uh, sort of zigzagging between coming down, going up. That's not going to look very competent. So from that point of view, I would also expect the Bank of England to keep this on table mount at the current level of 5.25% for quite some time. The bank says this might actually be that level until the end of 2024, maybe even into 2025.
Mm.
Let's see what happens, but that's the situation we're in. I don't believe the Bank of England can afford to derail the downward trend in inflation by lowering interest rates too early.
Mm. I mean, the classic generally is that central banks tend to increase interest rates too late, too late, and then they tend to bring them down too early. I think that's the thing where,
Hmm.
and so
Yeah,
you get
exactly.
you get it bad at both ends of the scale. But anyway, we'll just have to see, because the problem is you bring them down too early, then you've got to raise them again, as you've just said. So.
That's the
Uh,
exactly.
so that's the problem, and then they look stupid, and then people don't believe them, and then the market just does what it wants to, which is not the idea.
And of course, these things are also always embedded in the political cycle,
Mm.
which means that Sunak will need to want interest rates to come down next year before he calls the next general election, for
Mm.
obvious reasons. But clearly, the Bank of England is independent, and he can't actually tell the bank to do what he wants them to do, but there is going to be lobbying on the Bank of England, and so that's all going to be inspired by the political goal which the Tory government, of course,
Hmm.
has, and that is they will want to see interest rates coming down next year. So next year is going to be a game of the Bank of England not wanting to put interest rates down, but coming increasingly under fire or under pressure of parties in the economy and in politics who would want them to do this. All of that, of course, um, anticipating that inflation is going to come down further.
Hmm. Brilliant. So there we go. So let's move on to the second topic, which is all about what happened this week with Bletchley Park. There was the inaugural AI Safety Summit where you had loads of representatives and leaders from governments, from companies that are right at the forefront of AI at the moment. So Microsoft, Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, and many others. Notably, the people that weren't there were Macron. I don't know why, and Joe Biden. I guess that's a bit of a. I think that's. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but I think that's a bit of an alpha male type thing going on there, where the Americans want to look like they say they don't need to go to some little island to show that they're at the forefront of AI. Because let's face it, they've got all the biggest companies that deal in it. Well, I mean, we had DeepMind, but Google bought DeepMind. But anyway, so yeah, Americans are at the forefront, and so yeah. So I thought it was interesting. From what it's worth, from my point of view, I thought that it was impressive that the event went ahead at all. So I think that's a win. I think that also though that the number of attendees was, I think, and the quality is very impressive, and particularly that the Chinese came as well.
Yes.
I wonder. I mean, although America is very much at the forefront of AI, if America had held it, I wonder whether the Chinese would have been there. Now, some people have criticised the event for inviting the Chinese, but I would suggest that you had to have them there because you can't pretend that China doesn't exist, and I think that it's important that more people and more governments are on top of AI. So I think it's a good thing that they came. And like I say, had it been held in America, would it have gone ahead? I don't, or would they have turned up? I don't know. I mean, they're actually having some. I think Xi Jinping is going to America this month, and no doubt they'll talk about AI and stuff then as well. But anyway, so I thought it was really good. That was really good. There were some, they signed an agreement, but that's not legally binding and all that. But I think the fact that they actually had the thing going on, the fact that they got together, they thought, they talked, they debated, and they came to some kind of conclusions. I mean, it's the first one, so you can't expect everything. But I think I think it's a good step, and it was a major step forward, and hopefully it means that will help to accelerate a coordinated approach towards the regulation of AI and the ethics surrounding it.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you think, Ralph?
Well, indeed. I mean, you said exactly what I think as well. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, we all know what AI is and what is going on. We have LLMs, large language models, left, right, and center. Everybody develops one. The most well-known one is ChatGPT, and it writes our essays and it does all sorts of things. The new version of ChatGPT you can actually chat to. I don't know whether you've tried it or not, but it's actually really impressive. It's like talking to a human being. It's a bit wordy. I mean, it gets on my nerves if I'm perfectly honest. But it is technologically very impressive indeed. And
When you
so
say that, do you mean what? You mean a voice thing, or?
Yeah, a voice
Yeah.
thing. I mean, basically, you're talking to your mobile, like you talk to your personal assistant if you have Alexa or Siri or
Oh,
Google
right.
Assist or whatever.
I didn't know
It's
that.
exactly the same thing. It's just you don't ask Siri to switch the light on. You
Yeah.
ask ChatGPT to talk about the development of democracy in Europe or something.
Wow.
And then you
Listen.
better put the kettle on because it's going to chat
Yeah.
to you for like 3 hours about this. But it is
Wow.
very impressive.
Wow. I was going to say, Ralph, look, if you're ever feeling lonely, just give me a call. You don't need to talk to ChatGPT. You've got me here. You know.
Oh, okay. Well, that's why I'm here. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
basically,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I
But
mean,
afterwards,
actually,
you're just going to go and put the kettle on and have a chat to ChatGPT, right?
well, nobody knows this. I don't actually exist, really. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I'm a
Well,
synth
virtual.
or whatever. I mean, when we switch off our various technologies here, I kind of deflate at my desk.
Yeah. Nice.
And next week I
No.
come up, blow up
Yeah.
Ralph.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
so it's all good stuff here. We all know what AI is. What we also know, or at least sense, is that this is a clearly transformational technology in the making, with the operative words being in the making. I don't think anybody really knows where the journey is going to go. But we all know that this is a transformational technology of a kind which mankind probably has not encountered before.
Mm.
And I would include here inventions like fire and the wheel, even language, or
Mm.
maybe language is similar, but
Mm.
probably not even that. It follows from this that we need to find some forms of regulation, some framework which will mean that we can at least contain the development and make sure. You can see I'm halting in my voice because I don't really know how to phrase this. Make sure is probably too optimistic. What I
Mm.
should say is create guidelines which we would be able to apply to prevent the worst abuses of this technology.
Mm.
And I think the awareness in the industry in politics that this is necessary, that has been building over the last 2 years, because just the awareness that we need to do this is also quite new.
Mm.
It's newer, if that's a word, than the technology itself.
Mm.
And so this is one thing which I would like to say. That's bullet point number one from this. The fact that we now have an AI summit. This one was in the UK, the next one is going to be in France, and you can see where this might be going. It might be going around like the Olympics. Every country hosts
Mm.
one every year. Summits of this nature where countries are coming together, countries and the technologies which they host are coming together in in the attempt to seek a dialogue with the aim to formulate effective regulation for this technology. That in itself is a step forward and a necessary step.
Mm.
The second point I would like to make is echoing your point. It's interesting to see who was there and who wasn't there. I mean, Kamala Harris was there, the vice
Mm.
president of the US, so it's not as if the US weren't present, but
Mm.
it's very important to see that China was present.
Mm.
Because if we wish to develop any kind of regulation which effectively can can form a framework for this technology, then it has to be hosted or agreed on by all the countries in the world who are the host of this technology, and that is basically, let's face it, the US and China.
Mm.
It's less Europe.
Mm.
Um, and the third point which I would like to say, or which I noted, is that America, it's not just that they were absent in, the big guy didn't come, the US president didn't
Mm.
come, but they also have a parallel development in the US where they are talking about and developing regulation themselves, and this is called the AI Safety Institute, which they founded. So I think this is all excellent developments which go in the right direction, because I do remember when we talked about it in previous podcasts, I was getting worried that the politicians didn't even understand the need for this regulation. And so clearly we are now in a world where where the momentum is gathering um, in order to develop this regulation. The fact that we don't quite know yet how to regulate this industry perhaps isn't actually all that concerning, because we don't quite know where this technology is going at the moment anyway. So I think these are the right developments here. The right tendencies are beginning to take shape. The fact that this is going to be an annual event, as it is shaping up to be, is important, and the fact that all notable representatives from industry were there, and most of the political leaders of the countries has made this a pivotal event.
Yeah, I mean it is yeah, it's quite amazing to think it did actually happen here. And there are some. I mean, I guess you have like people like Elon Musk bringing a bit of the old showbiz
Yes.
to it as well. But anyway, it's a good thing. I think it's a great first step. It's moving in the right direction, but of course, the next step now. So we've got all the niceties out of the way. It needs to come. They need to come out with some, more constructive and concrete measures in order to do it, and it needs to happen quickly because of the speed of the development of AI.
Yeah,
So it
exactly.
needs to happen quickly,
I mean, the thing
but it's a good
which
base.
the country signed was a declaration that basically says that industry needs to run its product developments by governments and ask for sign off.
Mm,
It's not legally binding. Nobody
mm,
has to do this, but it's a declaration of intent, so to speak, and it is the right direction. Although I would sort of slightly shrug my shoulders about this. I don't really want governments to have a say in which technology is fit for purpose. I want an independent regulatory body,
mm.
analogous to what we have in the pharma industry, for
Mm.
example.
As in pharmaceuticals, not agriculture.
Sorry, yes, I keep
Just to
doing
say,
this
yeah,
as a pharmaceuticals, absolutely.
yeah.
Um, because clearly, I mean, nobody would doubt that we need effective regulation in the pharmaceutical industry.
Mm.
Nobody is doubting that we are needing this in AI. I just think governments are possibly the wrong arbiter to sign this off. But it is a good first step, and I'm sure that we are going to have regulatory bodies, the foundation of regulatory bodies to look at AI, which is going to come out of this process. Um, there was one other thing which I wanted to say on this, but unfortunately I've forgotten what it was. There's
You built it up so well,
yeah,
and then suddenly it's like, okay.
excellent. It's not a very constructive comment. I remembered.
Oh,
It's
yeah, good.
it's the fact that we all will be turned into paper clips.
Hmm.
Okay, for those who are not following the AI world as closely as perhaps some others do, this is Nick Bostrom's famous thought experiment, and he basically highlighted several years ago in his book Superintelligence the potential danger of super intelligent AI. So he basically said, well, what happens if you give my super intelligent AI the mandate or the task to produce as many paper clips as possible? then the AI will go away and transform all the matter in the universe eventually into paperclips. And that has become a metaphor for the potentially existentially destructive power of superintelligence. Once AI becomes more intelligent than the most intelligent human, then basically it is on a pathway which humans cannot control anymore. That's known as the problem of control and the problem of alignment. And the reason that I mention these two is that notably, and it can be expected that this problem has been discussed at this summit, and it was, and this is what Elon Musk brought to the proceedings: a bit of showmanship, a little bit of buzz. And not surprisingly, he basically said again that AI might actually be the death of all humans in the universe. Now, whether it is or whether it isn't is not quite my point. I believe that it is, however, important to discuss this potential existential threat, whether it is real or not, because it brings home the potential danger of this technology and commensurately the need to regulate it. Once this has been established again and again, we can then think about how to regulate the near-term risks. And it was also near-term risks such as disinformation, fake news, the development of so-called synths, which are human replicas, and all the potentially nefarious uses which this can be put to. That was discussed, especially in the context of next year, where we're going to have elections in many countries of the world, and the potentially corrosive impact on the way in which voters form opinions by AI. This is a near-term risk. It's near-term indeed. It's next year where we're going to find potentially the impact of AI on the decision-making process in the context of voting. And so these were discussed as well. And I think that is where the short-term risks are, which regulation needs to address.
Fair enough. I just wanted to add that maybe having Elon Musk there added a bit of the X factor.
Oh God!
Thank you.
Very, very good.
Thank you. Anyway, right, good stuff. So let's move on to the final topic after that shocking dad joke. So the third thing is the end of the luxury boom. Now, I think that it would be fair to say, over the last few years, luxury goods have been doing incredibly well. Luxury goods companies, so the likes of LVMH, Louis Vuitton, etc., and Kering, which owns brands such as Gucci, Balenciaga, and Yves Saint Laurent, among others. They've all been doing really well. And it seemed, and actually to the extent that recently LVMH became the biggest company in Europe. However, it seems that recent results and statements and things like that has not been going as well. And it seems that things have been slowing down in this area. And I would add to that, so that Porsche, for instance, did not do particularly. So last week, they were saying that they were seeing a slowdown in luxury, slowdown in sales themselves. So it would seem that maybe until really rather recently, rich people have been not feeling the cost of living crisis in the same way that a lot of other people have. So the lower down the socio-economic scale you are in terms of your income, the higher the proportion of your disposable income that you spend on basics like food, accommodation, and perhaps fuel, utilities, that sort of thing. So when the utility bills go up, when food prices go up, you feel it. You feel it directly in the way that you live. Less so the higher up the scale you are in terms of earnings and income, that sort of thing, because you will be thinking more of, oh, yeah, the food shopping is a bit more expensive. Oh, that's a nightmare. But actually, you keep spending, you keep buying the holidays. This is what's been happening, right? So, you keep buying the holidays. I think it was, what was it? So, um, private jets, all that sort of. So, it's all kind of been doing okay. It's surprisingly doing okay. But it's been slowing down. And now I was thinking, is this the case? And then I thought it'd be quite interesting to see, because this week we had results from Ferrari and Aston Martin, for instance, to see whether like ultra high net worth people were also feeling it. And it seems not. It seems that Ferrari has been doing really well. Aston Martin didn't do well, but I would argue Aston Martin has its own problems. So one is it's got very high debts, and it's been trying to sort out its finances. Also, it had some production supply chain bottleneck problems. So if you put that aside, you've got, say, if you contrast, say, Ferrari's strength and Porsche's weakening trend, I would say that Ferrari is in another level above Porsche. I mean, although most of us would say, having a Porsche is kind of a badge of wealth, etc. The fact of the matter is, you can get, if you really wanted to, you could buy a Porsche, a new one like a Macan or maybe a Cayman or something like that for a sort of 50-ish. If you had no cup holders and things, maybe 50-ish grand, 50, 60 grand. Whereas, Ferraris will, I mean, you starting from like 180 above. Same with Aston Martin as well. So it's another leap. But anyway, going back to it, one of the things I would like to suggest here is that, and I was talking about this recently, not to someone in the gym, I hasten to add, but just in the way that I feel that rich people feel the cost of living crisis in a different way to people lower down the socio-economic scale. Because I think at the lower end, you're feeling it directly, that you can't afford as much food. You maybe heat or eat. You might have to switch off the heating when it's cold. All that kind of stuff. Whereas I think what happens with richer people is that, although they might not, although they might think, oh God, the food bill's a bit high. But they feel it in other ways, because they may look at things like the values of their portfolio, for instance. Because obviously, if you're lower down the scale, you don't have money to throw around to have a portfolio of investments and things, and shares, stocks and shares and stuff. Whereas further up the scale, you probably will have. And you can imagine you might be thinking, God, this, I keep hearing about this cost of living crisis, and it is bad, but I'm okay. But I wonder what my portfolio is doing. And then they look at their portfolio and think, wow, actually, I'm getting killed here. So, what's going on? And then they go to the golf club, and then they talk to their mates at the golf club, and the people that mates to, and it all spreads, and everyone starts panicking about what's going on in their portfolios. Then they think, well, maybe I won't buy that suitcase, that's luggage set from Louis Vuitton or something, or maybe I won't do this. I'll pull it in like that. And so maybe I kind of wonder whether that is why these luxury companies are seeing a bit of a slowdown. Whereas if you then go past the high net worths and go into the realms of the ultra high net worths, they're still okay. But sorry, I know that's a bit of a convoluted, thing to say. But anyway, what do you think of that, Ralph?
Yeah, it certainly looks as if that's a sensible way to look at the phenomenon, which is the luxury goods market. It's a strange market, isn't it? In economics, I think there's a term for this. It's called anomalous demand or something, which means that the more expensive an item is, the more demand is there for it. Because clearly a higher price associates luxury and exclusive use with the good which you're buying. And the luxury good market is really weird. I mean, I may have shared this anecdote with you before, but my wife and I were at Harrods. This is a long time ago, like 10 years ago or so. And I thought, well, it's Christmas soon, so I'm going to buy something nice. And we were in the bags division or whatever, the department where you had bags. And there was a bag which was made from some expensive leather. It was something like crocodile leather or something. I can't remember exactly what it was. And it was a clutch bag. Clutch bags are sort of small things which you can, well, the name suggests what it is, which you can just hold in your hand when you're at cocktail parties or whatever it might be. And so I thought, well, can I have a look at this, please? And I was talking to the person selling the bags. Can I take a look at this, please? And my wife said, oh, no, don't do this. And I thought, well, how expensive can this be? It's maybe 500 quid because it's a luxury item. It's a small bag, may cost 500 quid, but it's Christmas. So, and the person said, this one would be £15,000, sir.
How did you? And what was your reaction?
My reaction was,
well, I'll have two.
Yeah, right.
Put me down for two.
I was speechless for once. Happens very rarely, and I just walked away and I thought, okay, good, not for me then. Anyway, so that's just to illustrate what the luxury goods market can be like, and it is clear that somebody who may have £500 to spend on a little bag is not a person who is destitute, but a person who can spend £15,000 is in a completely different league. And this is the same for any kind of good in the luxury good markets. These are things which you don't really need. If you need a bag, you need some sturdy item where you can stuff some things in which you need to carry around. I think that's the definition of a bag. But it has to cost $10,000.
So beautifully expressed, but yeah,
excellent. I know what I'm talking about here. And so yeah, sure. I mean, this can cost 150 quid, 200 quid, because it's a big bag and you have to it's luggage and it needs to be sturdy, etc. But clearly, anything else is not justified simply from the utility of the item. And this would be my way, perhaps, of analyzing it illustratively. I have no numbers here to offer, but there are two things here which I would like to point out. One is something which I would call the marginal purchase. That's something which you sort of would like to buy. And if you feel flush, if you are affluent, if you have the money, then you would buy it. But if you feel that you haven't got quite as much money as you thought you would need to justify this purchase, then you would not make it. And that goes back to your point. Maybe I'm looking at my portfolio. Maybe my portfolio has just dropped by £100,000. That's not going to be a disaster for you if you are an affluent person, but it's not going to make you happy. And it might be the difference between buying that new Porsche or not buying it. And the next bit, we were mentioning Ferraris. The next bit which I would like to introduce into this is utility.
Mhm.
Because a Porsche, which might cost you 50, 70,000 pounds, is actually uh, it's a utility car. You can
Mm.
use it in the real
Mm.
world. You can put suitcases in it. Would you believe it?
Mm.
And you can it drives perfectly fine. There's nothing weird going on.
Mm.
A Ferrari is not a usable item. It's a
Mm.
completely preposterous car. You can't
Mm.
put any luggage in it. You can't go shopping with it because the boot space isn't enough for you to actually use.
Mm.
It's wider at the back than it is at the front.
Mm.
It's ridiculous. I mean, it really doesn't work. So the utility of the 250,000 pound car is very low.
Mm.
And if I
Although
then,
the Ferrari does have a solution for that very problem.
yeah, I
You know,
know.
they recently released a 4x4, um,
Oh,
called the
fine.
Puro Sangue, which is well, I think it's a bargain. I mean, it's only about 300 grand. So again, you know, I mean, obviously there's room for a lot of Harrods clutch bags in there. I would
Yeah,
suggest.
excellent.
Yeah,
I think you can buy an Audi Q8 for 40,000 or something.
could be.
Uh,
I don't know.
yeah. Anyway, so that would be a better solution for
Yeah,
many. Anyway,
yeah,
where was I? Utility. So
yeah.
basically, if you do like a ratio, utility divided by purchasing price, then
Mm.
the Ferrari is even more expensive than the
Mm.
Porsche.
Mm.
Because I mean, or the other way around, whichever you want the metric to be, price divided by utility,
Mm.
you have a huge number in a Ferrari and you have a much lower number in a Porsche,
Mm.
meaning that to buy a Ferrari, not only do you have to be affluent, not only do you have to have a sizable discretionary income,
Mm.
you also have to be able to buy an item which is basically useless, which has
Mm.
no obvious utility value. A Ferrari is a fun car to drive. That's what it does, and that's what it is. And it's
Mm.
nothing really much more than that.
Mm.
Um, Therefore, the ultra high, well, I don't know whether that's a word or not, but
Mm.
I'm coining it, the ultra high luxury market, the sort of
Mm.
strata within the luxury market,
Mhm.
which are closer to the top than to the bottom, are less affected by the vagaries of the economy
Mm.
than the medium layers, let's say, and
Mm.
that's where the Porsches of this world reside. And that's why, yeah, I would go with your analysis there. It is also that we have now lived in a world with very high household expenditure and cost of living for quite some time.
Mm.
And it takes time for this to filter through to the household income or wealth, even of those people who are affluent.
Mm.
And so I come back to my idea of the marginal purchase, by which I just simply mean that you need to be flush, you need to feel flush, you need to have 70k lying around basically
Mm.
in order to buy a Porsche. But if your portfolio just dropped by that sort of amount, then you may actually defer that purchase until
Mm.
later. And that is, I think, where the bracket Porsche finds itself in, and
Mm.
that's probably why Porsche has announced that it's slowing down, whereas Ferrari has actually had a very good year
Mm.
recently. And I don't know about bags,
Yeah,
whether LV, what are they called? LVMH.
LVMH. So Louis Vuitton.
Yeah, I think they also didn't suffer very much, and so
They did.
that's
No, they did. They did. They are contracting. The only one actually that of that ilk that seem to be doing all right is actually Prada.
oh,
Um,
fair enough.
so yeah,
Mhm.
but there we go. I mean, who knew, right, that both of us would be such incredibly knowledgeable fashion stroke automotive gurus? I mean, you know, there you go. I mean, yeah,
Indeed, my
yeah,
car is I my car is 17 years old, so I
brilliant,
really
nice, nice. But no, there you go. So I think we might as well sort of bring it to a close there.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of interesting stuff to unpack. And I think, sorry, I hate that phrase. I don't know why I say
Can't
that.
believe you said
I'm
unpack.
gonna unpack. I don't know. I read it like earlier on, and yeah. So I don't know.
Well, this goes
Anyway,
back to the bag thing about luxury, isn't
yeah.
it? Yeah.
Yes, of course it is.
Yeah,
Of
cool.
course it is. Yeah.
And look out for our brilliant podcast
Yeah.
on which we still have to record. So maybe I shouldn't actually laud this so
Yeah.
much.
Well,
But
no, we've got one. No, so we've done one. We've done one, and there's going to be another one as well. So I'm thinking release them at roughly the
but
same
you
time.
haven't published it yet. So we've done it, but
Yes,
it's not out there yet.
that's
So don't
correct.
start
Yeah.
looking for it, guys.
No, absolutely. Anyway, right. Well, thank you very much indeed. Always a pleasure, as always. And thank you very much for listeners for listening, watchers for watching, and for you just supporting us. So thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for
All right.
listening.
See ya. Bye.
Bye.